and I welcome everyone. Nishka?
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming in today. We really, really appreciate it. So just want to go over some things in the beginning first. Number one, if you have any questions, you can please put it in the chat. You could either send it to everyone, you can direct message it to me or Miss Jean Embler. If you don't want us to read your names, you can obviously put the word anonymous at the bottom, which means that no one will really know it's you asking. So you can just feel free to ask whatever you want. And I think we should maybe wait one more minute, if that's okay, Ong Kaar Auntie.
Not a problem.
Okay, because people are slowly trickling in.
So how is it springtime in New Jersey at this point?
It's actually quite beautiful. We have the tulips coming up, and the flowering trees, the wild roses. The lilacs are out, and they have a wonderful, wonderful smell. Yeah, it's quite beautiful.
So I think we're going to get started now, and people can just keep coming in. If you want to put your cameras on, it's obviously easier to talk to a person than to a screen, but only if you're comfortable with it. So with that, my name is Nishka. I'm a Girl Scout, and I currently live in New Jersey in the Parsippany area. My Gold Award project is to create awareness about the Sikh community, which is why we have a 2-speaker series at the library. First, we invited Dr. Singh, who's a cardiologist in New York, to explain the history of Sikhism, where it came from, a little background. So I appreciate all of you who did come to that one. And today we're just going to go a little more in depth with Sikhism. And I'd just like to invite Ong Kaar Auntie to please take the floor with this. So I guess my first question for you is, what was your life like before Sikhism found you? Can you give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. First, I want to just say it's really nice to join you all over Zoom. If you can't hear me, just kind of say, hey, talk louder. I was actually born in New Jersey, so it's wonderful to be kind of beaming back into my home state. I was born in Haddon Heights, which is right outside of Philadelphia in the Cherry Hill area. And I was born into a really nice Catholic family, and grew up in Catholic school, Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school. Lots of nuns in my upbringing, lots of church experiences in my upbringing. And there we go. Did anything I say, did you hear anything I just said? Yes, okay, all right. And then when I went to college, my family moved to Texas when I was a teenager. And in college, I became very curious about Eastern wisdom traditions, and studied about Buddhism. I spent a year abroad in China, studying Chinese language and culture, and I just became really curious about the Eastern wisdom traditions. So when I graduated from college in 1991, I want to say it was, which dates me clearly. I'm in my mid 50s or my early 50s at this point. When I graduated from college, I was going through kind of an existential crisis. Like, what am I going to do with my life? What's next for me? And I had a lot of insomnia. I couldn't sleep very well. And a friend of mine said to me, there's this ashram over in the Montrose area. I was living in Houston, Texas at the time. There's this ashram, and these crazy people get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditate. So if you can't sleep, why don't you go join them and meditate at 4 in the morning? And I thought, that's crazy. That's a crazy idea. But there I was, night after night, waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, staring at the ceiling, not knowing what to do. And so finally one morning I thought, what the heck? And at the time, the ashram was in a kind of dodgy part of Houston. It was like, a lot of bars, it was the art cultural scene. But I drove over there at 3:30 in the morning, and it was just this little white house, and there were some people getting together in the living room, and I went up to the house and knocked on the door, and this big man in a beard and a turban said, "Welcome." And I walked in, and we did a bunch of really intense yoga for about an hour, and I had never done yoga before. And then after we did yoga, we did all this chanting in a language I didn't know. But after the experience, I felt really peaceful and really relaxed, and my anxiety was gone, and I was feeling happy. And I went home and I slept really well. And I thought, what is this? And so that was kind of the beginning of my journey. And it was I don't know how to say it. It took time from walking into the ashram, doing some yoga, to like taking another name and officially deciding to become a Sikh and wearing a turban. It was about I would say a 7-year process for me, from going, from one thing to the next. But what I would say is that as I came to chant, there was a lot of chanting that happened at the ashram, and chanting these beautiful songs and these beautiful mantras. And the more I chanted and the more curious I became about what I was chanting, the more I kind of fell in love with this path started by a man named Guru Nanak back in 1469. It's very universal, it's very inclusive, it's very transcendent, it's very respectful of all faiths, it's respectful of men and women both. And I just found myself getting drawn in until finally I took the plunge and I guess became a Sikh. I don't know if that answers your question, Nishka, but that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you so much for all of that. I think you already briefly touched on Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So if you could tell us, kind of exactly what about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, really pulled you into the religion, and what made you decide to finally take that plunge?
Well, I mean, I think what I want to express is that for me, Sikhism isn't a religion. And that's maybe one of the big differences. For me, it was a way of life. It was a lifestyle. So, and the lifestyle involves, getting up early in the morning and meditating to clear your subconscious and develop your conscious connection with the universe. So I come more from like a new age, sort of spiritual seeking place than someone who was looking for a faith necessarily. And there's lots of great stories about Guru Nanak, but I'll just share a couple of my favorites. So Guru Nanak was born in 1469 in what's now Pakistan. And he was born into a Hindu family, and relatively high caste Hindu family. And he was born at a moment in time when there was the precursor to the Mughal Empire was getting established in that part of the world. So there was a lot of friction between Muslims and Hindus. But he was a really sensitive soul, and he questioned everything around him. So there's a great story about how when a Hindu boy comes of age, like 8 years old, they do a ceremony where they tie a sacred thread around the boy's neck to say, okay, now you're allowed to start studying the spiritual traditions and get initiated, into being a man. And during the ceremony, Guru Nanak kept questioning it. He just kept questioning what was going on, and why could he do it and not his sister, and how could the thread tie him to God if it was going to break and fall apart one day? And he just kept pushing and pushing it until finally he refused to participate in the ritual, and he just tore off the thread and threw it into the fire. So he started off, when you study his history, he was a very precocious man, very questioning, and he studied with anybody, no matter what. He talked to Muslim saints, he talked to Hindu saints, he talked to the yogis, anybody who had any kind of wisdom, he would go and ask them questions and ask them questions. And he was hungry. He was hungry for a deeper meaning that would take him away from all the division that he saw in the society around him. And we say that he had his awakening when he was in his early 30s. And after he had his awakening experience, his basic message was, there is the same light of God in every single creature, in every single person. And our common humanity is our highest spiritual bond. And so he didn't really adhere to the idea of caste. He didn't believe in discrimination of women. He didn't even really believe in discrimination of religion. One of the first things he said was, there is no Hindu and there is no Muslim. And it was, what he was saying was that the light of the divine is equally in everybody. So why are human beings dividing themselves in this false way based on what we call religion? And so he saw the oneness, and it was that oneness that really spoke to me. Like, that's what really touched me the deepest. It's not that I'm a Sikh to be a different religion. It's that I'm a follower of Guru Nanak to recognize the oneness of the human race. And I love that philosophy. I've just fallen in love with it. So after his awakening, he traveled on foot for decades. He had a companion, Mardana, who was a Muslim musician. And I love, the stories of Guru Nanak traveling and teaching. Like, for me, not to be disrespectful, but for me, he was kind of like the hippie guru. He and his buddy, who like had a stringed instrument, would just travel to places, and they would sit and talk to people, and they would sing with people. And that was what he did. He just walked around and confronted people's loneliness and helped them, and used song to teach people and to inspire people. There's great stories about, what he did. He wanted to wake people out of their ritualism. So there's one story, he and Mardana were walking, and they came to a village, and people were in a lake, and they were throwing water towards the sun when it rose in the morning. And Guru Nanak was like, that's interesting. What are you doing? And they said, well, we're feeding our ancestors. We're giving water to our ancestors. So Guru Nanak was like, oh, interesting. So he got in the water, and he faced the opposite direction. He faced to the west instead of the east. And he began throwing, kind of scooping up water and throwing it towards the west. And the people gathered said, what are you doing? What are you doing? He said, I'm watering my fields. I'm giving water to my fields. And all the folks gathered started laughing at him and said, you're crazy. You can't water your fields like that. And he turned around and said to the people, then what makes you think you can get water to your ancestors? So, and some people were like, that's a really good point. And then they would sit, and then they would talk. And so his mission was so much about the suffering that people create for ourselves, because we get lost in ritual, because we get lost in divisions. And he was about, meditation, but also cultivating discriminating insight, or cultivating thoughtfulness about how to approach life. He was about including everybody. He didn't turn anybody away. He didn't try and start a separate religion, even though a separate religion, so to speak, came out of his teachings. He was very universal. And these are, some of my favorite stories about him. That I love. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now, Nishka. You can ask me another question.
That was actually perfect. Perfect. I've always been told these stories in bedtime in a really monotone voice and all, and you just made it so animated for me. And yeah, my mom is upset I said that, but that's okay. So I guess my question is, you talked a little bit about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and what about oneness? Really, what is oneness? What makes it so different? And I know your name is Ong Kaar, which does mean oneness. So if you can kind of go into the concept real quick, if you guys, thank you all so much for coming. I think we've had over 15 people join since Ong Kaar started talking about Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So if anybody has any questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat. You can either direct message it to me or Miss Jean Marie. And if you don't want us to say your name, you can obviously write the word anonymous underneath. And obviously cameras on are preferred, but if you're not comfortable or if you're in a place where you can't, that's totally fine as well. So Ong Kaar, if you want to just talk about, I guess, Ong Kaar, that would be great.
Yes, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little taste of the experience, because I'm going to chant something right now. It's called the Mul mantra, and Mul means root. And it is the entire philosophy of the Sikh tradition. The essence of it is contained in this mantra. So I'm just going to chant it for you for a few minutes, because Guru Nanak didn't talk, he sang, he was a singing guru. And I'll sing for you for a couple minutes. And then I'm going to go through and explain what the essence of what the Mul mantra means, which gets to what Nishka is talking about, which is the spirit of oneness. Ek Onkar Satnam Karta Purik Nirvau Nirvana Kamurit Ajuni Saibang Gur Prasad Jap Ad Sach Jugat Sach Happy Sach Nanak Hosi Be Sach. Ek Onkar Satnam Karta Purik Nirvau Nirvana Kamurit Ajuni Saibang Gur Prasad Jap Ad Sach Jugat Sach Happy Sach Nanak Hosi Be Sach. So I just wanted to chant that a couple times so you could get the flavor of it. So Ek Onkar is the essence, the seed syllable, so to speak, for the entire tradition. And there's a lot of ways that it gets translated. Many people translate it as there is one God, but it actually goes a lot deeper than that. Ek means that there's one consciousness in the universe. There's just one consciousness. Ong is sound or vibration, and Kar is creation or manifestation. And so in a lot of ways, what Ek Onkar can be, another way to translate it is there's one consciousness who's constantly singing, and out of the songs, all of creation is formed. It's very similar to the words in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God and the Word was with God. I think that's from John. I could be wrong, but it's this notion that there's one unified consciousness, and there's this song that's constantly happening, and everything that exists is like an expression of a note or a phrase from that song. And of course, the manifestation is temporary, but the consciousness, the oneness, is eternal and beyond time and space and deathless. So Ek Onkar is kind of the formula, really, of what God is and how God works. Satnam, Sat means authenticity. It means truth. Nam is name or identity. And so Satnam means, because we partake of that Ek Onkar, there's some spark of divine light in all of us, and that is our authentic identity. Not like, okay, I can say, oh, I was born here and I'm half Italian, half Irish, and I'm 53 years old. And okay, so that's kind of a temporary truth. But my Satnam, my true self, is, yes, it is in Japji Sahib. That's the beginning of the Japji Sahib, is the Mul mantra. So the Satnam means I partake of that oneness, and the part of me that is one with the universe is my most authentic identity. Karta Purik. Karta is the hand that moves the sun, and Purik means the perfect protector. And so it's this idea that the one consciousness is doing everything and is protecting us and caring for us while it's moving the whole universe. One of my mentors once said, the hand that rotates the earth can take care of your routine. And that's kind of the sense of what Kartapudik means. Nirbo means beyond fear, and Nirver means beyond anger. So when I am in my authentic, true, divine nature, I never have a reason to be afraid, and I have no reason to be angry. So it gives the meaning that fear and anger come from the limited mind, from the ego, and we have limited mind and we have ego. It's not that there's anything wrong with that, right? It's part of being human. But when we're touching that divine essence in ourselves, it's a place where we're not actually afraid, where we're not actually scared of anything. We're not angry about anything. You know, the anger is just an act, but deep down inside, we're really not angry. Nirbo nirver. Akal murit. Akal means beyond time. Kal is time. Akal is beyond time. And murit is image or reflection. So every single human being is a reflection of the timeless one. So in English, we say, you know, you were born in the image of God. And that's kind of a kal murit, that we are all in the image of the timeless one, even though we're in this finite form for a little while. Ajuni, the essence, the divine essence is beyond birth. Saibung. Saibung is a beautiful word, and it means that you have a light inside of you, and it's your own light that's guiding your way. You are self-illumined. You are self-guided by your own inner light. Gur Prasad. Prasad is a gift or a blessing, and Gur is the formula that takes us from darkness to light. Gur is the teaching that takes us out of our ignorance. So
Ong Kaur, I think we just lost you. Just frozen on the screen. Let me see if I can get through her through text.
Yeah, we'll just wait a minute. Wait
this
for her to-
awareness will dawn at church.
There we go.
Any aspect of it, we recognize historical gurus that were the teacher, but we don't say they're the only teachers that ever existed. We recognize that the teacher is an aspect of infinity that can show up in lots of different ways and lots of different times and many different voices. So Gaur Prasad, Jap, there's only one command in the entire Sikh tradition, and that is Jap, and Jap is to repeat or to chant, and to chant with love. So not to chant mindlessly, but to chant lovingly, you know, like when you're in love with someone and you can't stop thinking about them, that's the Jap, where you just keep repeating and repeating. And then the seal of the Mul mantra, Ad Such, Jugad Such, Habi Such, Nanakosi Be Such. Ad is from the beginning of time, from the Big Bang, from the very origin of time. Such, this is the truth. Jugad Such, through all time and space, all the different ages of time and space, this is the truth. Habi Such, this is the truth right now in this moment. Nanak Hosi Be Such, and Nanak says this is going to be true into the future. So the Mul mantra describes the essence of the human connection with the divine that is unchanging, even though our forms change, our cultures change, our technology changes, our understanding changes, but the essence of who we are as humans, that illuminated essence, doesn't change. And we have the right to awaken ourselves to that reality and be happy in our human life. That is the essence of the Sikh teachings as I've understood them through Guru Nanak and the Mul mantra.
That was beautiful. I don't know about anybody else, but like as soon as you started playing your guitar, I was just in tears. I had like a meltdown Thank goodness the lighting here is kind of fuzzing up my face. But just for those of you who may not know, Ong Kaur Kaur has translated the entire Japji Sahib. And the Japji Sahib is basically our morning prayers, which every Sikh recites every single morning, every practicing Sikh. So she translated the entire thing, which is something that a lot of Sikhs don't understand. So even today, a lot of us will be saying Japji Sahib, we'll be reciting it, but we won't really understand the words. We won't be doing it with love. But that's the whole point of Sikhism, is to do it with love. And Ong Kaur, you did just that. So thank you so much for it. So I kind of want to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
You definitely gave us a wonderful understanding of the Mool Mantar and that idea of oneness. Could you kind of describe the equality that exists in Sikhism, like the different castes, gender equality,
Sure.
racial equality?
So, one of Guru Nanak's beautiful insights was that, it's the same divine essence in all creatures. And he was probably one of the first, if not the first, spiritual teacher who really, really strongly rejected these older traditions that made women inferior. That that women were lesser beings, that they have to be reborn as a man, or you can only get liberated through your relationship with your husband. And he really rejected all that and said, no, it's the same light in women and men both. And he did a lot of things in his life that defied the culture of his time. So his older sister, Bibi Nanaki, was probably his first student. And she recognized there was something special about her brother before her parents saw it or anybody else saw it. And when she got married, she moved away. She had to go live with her husband. And, this was before he became Guru. The young man, Nanak, before he became Guru Nanak, missed his sister so much that he did something scandalous. He left his home village and decided to go move to where his sister was. Well, at the time, that was unheard of. You don't follow your sister somewhere. But he was like, she's my sister. I love her. I miss her. I'm going to go be where she is. And he, by his actions and his words, he started deconstructing all the ways that women were held in, like in a less than light. And by the time of the third Guru, Guru Amar Das, Guru Amar Das named 27 women to go be teachers, which was radical. I mean, this is in the 1500s, in what's now Punjab, India and Pakistan. And they empowered women. They encouraged women to meditate and to become learned. And that's one of my, one of the things I love most about Guru Nanak is that he just rejected any idea that women were spiritually inferior to men or weren't allowed to access, the same disciplines or the opportunities that men did. In the same way, whether it comes to race or economic class or caste, or even religion, he kept relating to that light within everything, and therefore did not acknowledge that caste had any social validity, didn't acknowledge that racism had any validity, didn't sort of support the idea that one religion was superior or inferior to another, because all there was God. And again, another saying, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. So if I claim to be divine, but then I look down on this caste or that group, then I'm lying. If God isn't everywhere, then I haven't seen God. So he really lived that, and he worked to build a society that was liberated in that sense. There's a tradition, the Sikh tradition of langar, where everybody gets fed. And it's a great equalizer because everybody sits on the floor together, and it's not like, well, one group sits here and another group sits there. It's like, no, you sit next to whoever you sit next to. So the Sikh teachers used food as a way to sort of break down the taboos of who you could be sitting with or talking to or connecting with. And he was very dedicated in his life to just tearing down the walls and saying, you're miserable because you're not seeing that our common humanity is the most precious gift. And he would challenge societies and build different institutions, he and his successors, to manifest that. So the religion issue is also quite interesting, because there was no such thing as Sikhism in Guru Nanak's time. You were either a Hindu or a Muslim. That was it. So when he came out and he started teaching, there's no Hindu, there's no Muslim, people thought he went crazy. But Guru Nanak really liked to, provoke people. And there was a time in his life where he would dress half as a Hindu, half as a Muslim, just to confuse folks. And they would be like, what are you doing? Who are you? What are you? Who are you? What are you? So in this way, there were Hindus who followed him and Muslims who followed him. And they would always argue over whether he was actually a Hindu or a Muslim. And as he was getting ready to die, they were fighting about it. And they were like, okay, Guru Nanak, you have to tell us once and for all, are you a Hindu or are you a Muslim? Because we've got to figure out how to bury you when you die. Because if he was a Muslim, he would be buried. And if he was Hindu, he would be cremated. And so they were trying to pin him down to one religion, and he wouldn't have any of it. And he said, okay, both of you bring flowers and vases, put them before my bed. I'm gonna die tonight, and don't disturb me all night. Come in. When you come in, I will have left my body, and whoever flowers are blooming, you get to decide what to do with the body. So, okay. So they waited all night and they came in, and when they came in the morning, both vases were blooming. And they lifted the sheet off the bed, and there was no body. It was only flowers. There were only flowers. There was nothing but flowers. So Guru Nanak was working against the idea that our religion defines us. It's our humanity that defines us. But we as human beings need these definitions. And so what his students did was they took the sheet and they cut it in half. And the Hindus burned their half of the sheet, and the Muslims buried their half of the sheet. And there's actually a little grave, I think at Nankana Sahib, that shows where, these different rituals took place. So he was understanding that religion exists, but he was always pushing his students to transcend the limitation of seeing each other through the lens of Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Jain, this, that, the other thing, because then we stop seeing the essence and the light and the humanity. So that's some things I can share about Guru Nanak and his notion of equality.
That was a really great summary of the whole gender equality. And I also just want to add on top of that, women were teachers, women, they were regular humans in society, which was, radical at that time. But even when it came to the 10th Guru's times, a woman was actually the bodyguard of our 10th Guru. And he had thousands of men that could have done the job. But he chose a woman just to exemplify that a woman can do everything a man can do, physically, mentally, spiritually, and all of that. So I think now, I didn't realize that you would be so concise and get through it so quickly. So if anybody has questions, if you can just put them in the chat and we can kind of just go through.
Yeah, Nishka, I'll leave it up to you what questions you pick. So take a look at the questions.
Yeah. So Vinita Auntie just asked, why do the men and women sit separately in the Gurdwara?
That is a really good question. The way that I learned it is that that men and women are considered sort of polarity energies. And when the men are sitting on one side and the women are sitting in the other, it creates a balance in the voices and the energy. So there's an old yogic teaching about, the left nostril being the feminine moon energy and the right nostril being the masculine sun energy. And that it comes from, one way to talk about it is it comes from that idea that, you've got the moon on one side and the sun on the other. And then the guru is like the central channel, which is bringing everything together and balancing things. there's also just some old traditions, there's just old traditions that say that let the women and the men sit separately so they don't distract each other in a spiritual space. I mean, it's not that people don't flirt with each other when they're in Gurdwara, but if you have all the men on one side and all the women on the other, it's a little easier to keep that energy relaxed. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's human nature that we're dealing with. So those are the two things that I can speak to, but I'm sure that other scholars and other traditions would talk about it in a different way, but that's how I've understood it.
I didn't know that. I always just took it for granted that, men can't be distracted by women, and that's why it's been separate for eternity. That's just the way it is. So thank you for clarifying that for me too.
Women would never be distracted by men, Nishka.
So I think we have one more question. If women were encouraged to be learned, then how come there's never been a woman guru? That's a really good question, actually.
It's a really good question. And I get that question a lot, and that's hard. That's a hard question to answer. What I can offer is that I think the culture of the time would have made it really hard for a woman to be guru. Historically, Bibi Bani, who was Guru Amar Das's daughter and married to Guru Ram Das, the fourth guru, and the mother of Guru Arjan, the fifth guru. It's said that she was, if there was going to be ever a woman guru, it would have been her. That's the story, because she was incredibly meditative, very learned, very wise. And there's a story that goes, she was serving her father one day and he fell asleep and the leg of his chair broke. And she was worried that he was going to get jolted out of the chair and wake up. And so she put her hand underneath the chair, the broken part of the leg, to keep it steady. And she just held the chair for him while he slept. And the wood dug into her hand and she bled, but she wouldn't move. She was just so devoted and focused on her guru father, to take care of this, to take care of him. And eventually he woke up. And when he woke up, she saw this seva she had done, this service, this devotion she had done. And he looked at her and he said, okay, ask me anything and I'll grant it to you. Well, Bibi Bani could have been the guru, but she didn't ask to become the guru. What she said is, I would like the line of the gurus to come through me. I would like to be the mother of the gurus. And up until the time of Guru Amar Das, the guruship was not connected to a bloodline. It was just whichever student came and the grace was there, that person became the guru. But Bibi Bani asked specifically for the guruship to go through her line. And so her prayer was not to become guru. Her prayer was to become the mother of the gurus. And there's a beautiful shabad in the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, Mata Puta Ki Assis. And it's nominally composed by Guru Arjan, her son, but the tradition around that shabad is that it's based on a prayer that Bibi Bani actually did for him. And he took her prayer and he wrote it into this shabad, Puta Mata Ki Assis, which is, it means the prayer that a mother will do for her son, basically. And that's in the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. So when we look at Sikh history, we see the stories of women have not been kept as well as the stories of the men. And that's been very sad. Like we know that Guru Amar Das trained a lot of women to be teachers, but we don't know their names. We don't know what they did. That memory's been lost. So it's a tough thing, 500 years later, I think women in Sikhi are still really working towards coming into their full expression of their equality in the religion, even though Guru Nanak gave it to them, hundreds of years ago. So those are some thoughts I have about why there was never actually a woman guru, but it doesn't mean that there weren't powerful spiritual women who had amazing impact in the development of the faith and the history.
So I mean, I think that's a great explanation of it. I could never think of an answer. I just say, I don't know. It's the guru's choices, but that was put beautifully. And I won't be able to say it next time, but I'll have it in my head as my own answer. So Jean Marie said that in all history, women are not always remembered. That's actually so true. And right before that, there is a question. This was a direct message. So I won't reveal their name, but she asked, are there any teachings or perspectives regarding the LGBTQ life choices?
This is a really important topic. I'll tell you what, I actually just recently wrote a paper on this topic. What I will offer is that theologically, I don't find any reason to deny LGBTQ unions in Sikhi. I don't think there's any basis in Gurbani for denying that, because in the Guru's teachings, all creatures are considered feminine, and there's only one husband, which is the Ong Kaar, which is the great creator. So when we come before the Guru in marriage, even though traditionally it's a man and a woman, on a spiritual level, it's two brides. It's not a man and a woman, it's two brides, and God is the only groom. So theologically, in my opinion, there's absolutely no issues with who we love, because the soul, the essence, that's what we love. It's not about the body. Culturally, it's something that is new in every society, right? Like in my lifetime, this particular culture has been, given more space to express themselves and gain their rights and their freedom. And my prayer is that the Sikh community will, adhere to the spirit of equality, and also make room so that there can be a more public and honored space for the LGBTQ plus community in the LGBTQ plus Sikhs in the community. So that's my opinion and my perspective on it. And I literally just finished writing a paper about this last week, so fresh off the press, and I can send that to Jean, and she can get it to anyone who's interested.
Thank you for that explanation as well. I know that's something that's rolling in my mind. It's that in my mind, everybody's equal, but I can never think of a basis in Sikhi to justify that. So I appreciate you reciting everything. There are a lot of really positive comments. Ekon Karanti, you're going to have to sing again. I don't really care if your voice is tired.
Sure, I can.
Everyone loved it. And I have one anonymous question. What place does Sangat or a congregation have in a Sikh's life?
Oh yeah, great question. So if we look to the history of Sikhi, what we'll see is that there's 10 historical gurus who lived between 1469 and I think it's 1708. And so it's about 250 years of the development of this particular tradition. And when the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh, leaves his body, he doesn't leave the guruship to an individual. He leaves it in two different forms. He gives the spiritual guidance to the collection of songs, and doing a talk on the Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib is a whole other piece. But the Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib is a collection of sacred songs from different traditions. It includes the writing of the Sikh masters, but also some Hindu and Muslim writers. It's 1,430 pages of sacred songs that stretch from, Kabir, to it's a 400-year period of songs, like an anthology. And Guru Gobind Singh says, if you want to understand my wisdom, look to the words of the Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib. But when it comes to the affairs, to how to govern yourself, he said, look to the Sangat. My authority, my administrative authority is with the community. So community is really critical in the Sikh tradition, because number one, we need community we need a group of practitioners with which we can reflect and dialogue in order to cultivate our learning and our experience. But the other thing is that in the Sikh tradition, it isn't given to any one particular group of people to govern the community. It's given to the community to come together and discuss issues amongst themselves and govern themselves. So the Sanghat is necessary both for the support for a spiritual practice and also for self-governance. And when the community comes together and really dialogues and collectively decides on an action, that has the Guru's weight behind it, as if the Guru were alive and giving the instruction himself.
Yes, that is perfect. And I'm just trying to see if there's any other questions at the moment. We do have 15 minutes left. And if more keep coming in, I know Jean Marie is always fine to go over, but it's up to you whenever anybody else wants to leave. Okay, so I do have one more question. What is your relationship with your turban or your dastar?
Oh yeah, I can tell. That's an easy one. My turban keeps my head together. That's my relationship with my turban. So I actually approach it from a very practical, scientific perspective, because I've had this experience so many times. So, I don't know if you know this, but the skull is made up of different bones. It's not like we just have one skull, right? We've got different bones that move together with the skull. And when you get stressed, it affects the way the bones in your skull are moving. And what I've experienced over time is that the turban is kind of like an acupressure treatment. It, like, if I get stressed and the bones in my skull want to shift, they can't, because I've got this thing that's sort of keeping my head together even when I'm stressed out. So there's lots of beautiful spiritual ways to talk about the turban, but for me, it keeps my head together. If I'm wearing my turban, I keep my cool under pressure a lot better. My mind is clearer. It helps me stay relaxed. It helps me stay calm and centered. And I really love that. So, in my everyday life, when I'm hanging out at the house with my husband, do I have my turban on? Oh, I'm just hanging out at home. But if I'm having to work, if I'm doing a talk, if I'm teaching, if I'm, in public in some way, will not do it without my turban. It is a very practical lifestyle tool for me. And plus, I think it just looks really cool.
It does. Your turban is your crown. It makes you royal. So hopefully one day I'll get to that point. But right now, we're just going to have to stick with this. So I actually have like 8 questions listed. So we're just going to try and get through this. And if it goes over, it goes over.
Okay.
So one question is, why do American Sikhs wear all white?
So I'm gonna give 2 answers to this. One is that it's not just American Sikhs who wear all white. It's also the Nirmalas who wore all white way back in the day in the old traditions of Punjab. And so it's part of the older Sikh traditions to wear all white. It's said that Guru Ram Das wore all white. So why do we wear it? Well, there's a saying that white holds all the colors of the rainbow. And so when you wear white, it just boosts your radiance, that it just helps you stay more elevated in your consciousness. It helps you have a stronger presence. It helps your radiance. Again, it's like the turban. I notice the difference. If I wear all white, I feel more confident. I feel more relaxed. I feel more present. I feel more, it has an effect on my mind to wear all white. It also trains you to be super sensitive to anything being like if you wear all white all the time, you really notice the speck of dirt. It's a very subtle training of the mind to become more precise, to wear all white. So those are some thoughts about why we wear all white.
I learned like 10 new things just from that answer. So I appreciate it. And I think this is a perfect question for you, Ong Kaur Aunty. What are some good resources to learn more about Sikhism?
Oh, wow. Right now there's tons of stuff on YouTube. You can go to the SikhNet YouTube channel to learn. There's Nanak Nam. There's the guys in the UK. Help me remember, Nishika.
Basics of Sikhi?
Basics of
Yeah,
Sikh.
I think so.
So today there's just wonderful people on YouTube who are talking all kinds of things about Sikhi from different perspectives. So I would recommend videos. Honestly, I would recommend videos. If you have children, Ong has a wonderful series of books called Journeys with the Guru, which are great children's stories. They're the Guru stories in children form with beautiful color pictures, and I would recommend those. SikhNet does children's animation. We take old Sikh stories and do animation for them. That's on our YouTube channel. If you really want to get into the history, my favorite book, but it's not easy to read, is The Sikh Religion by Arthur McAuliffe. He was the first person to ever write Sikh history in English, and it's very old English, it's archaic English, but it really gives you the flavor of the history from that perspective. And those are some places to get started.
And just a shout out over here to Ong Kaur Aunty. Currently, she is the acting director of SikhNet, and SikhNet is SikhNet. It's a website that so many Sikhs know about, and I think it was one of the first websites that was dedicated to Sikhi. So that's kind of where I go to whenever I have any questions about my own faith. And you are the current acting director. The other executive director, I believe, Gurmaslak Singh, is on a sabbatical.
Yeah.
And she also has a series on YouTube under the SikhNet channel where she describes each section or pori of Japji Sahib in a really, really understandable manner. So while there are more questions that are going to be coming in, I'm going to try and get some links in the chat so that way you guys can copy paste them and access them. And with that, I'm just going to move on to some more questions. So someone is asking about Amrit Vela. So can you tell us about the 4 a.m. time? Why do you wake up so early in the morning?
Yeah, sure. So Amrit Vela, again, it's a very old tradition, and I've been talking a lot with Dr. Harbanzalal, who's a Sikh elder. He's been telling me beautiful stories about life in Punjab before partition, and it was part of the Sikh tradition for families to get up in the Amrit, what's called the Amrit Vela, which is about 2 to 3 hours before sunrise. So it's this kind of sweet time. If you go to bed at a decent hour, you've gotten a pretty good night's sleep, but the sun hasn't risen yet, the day hasn't started yet. And if you wake yourself up at this like late morning, early morning, 4 o'clock in the morning to like between 4 and 7, it's this really sweet time where you can just be with yourself and meditate that no other time of day will give you, because as soon as your day starts, we're off to the races, right? Got to get ready for work, got to get the kids, got to get this, got to get the food made, got to get, and then by the end of the day, it's like, oh, I just want to go to bed. And so it's this habit to give yourself this beautiful time with you and your soul. And all of the Sikh gurus taught about Amrit Vela. I mean, it's a real powerful teaching you'll find it in Guru Nanak's writings, and Guru Ram Das and Guru Arjan and Guru Tegh Bahadur. They all talk about the importance, because we can be philosophical, right? But if you don't have a taste, it's like, I can talk about France. I can read lots of books about France. I can put pictures on my wall of France, but I'm not going to taste France until I go there. And so Sikhi is not a philosophy. We've got our sacred writings and we've got a philosophical construct, but you've got to go there. You got to taste it. And so the Amrit Vela is the time of day where we do the practices to give ourselves the taste of the thing we're talking about, of the thing that we're, philosophizing about. And it's just a real precious time of day. And then 4 to 7 in the evening is also a really great time to meditate if you can pull yourself away from regular life. So it's those times of day where everything changes, right before and during sunrise, right before and during sunset are considered the most ideal times to practice. But if you can't do it, if you can't practice during the Amrit Vela, at least practice sometime. It's better to do something sometime than nothing ever.
So true. I have quite a few more questions. I think I'm going to go with this one first. Can anyone sing in a gurdwara?
From what I've understood, absolutely. The gurdwara is open to all people, 4 doors open to all, and all people are welcome to come and sing. Now, does it mean that can anybody lead the Sangat in chanting? Different gurdwaras have different protocols about who can lead the singing. But traditionally in the Golden Temple, 150 years ago, there were Muslim ragis who would play at the Gurdwara. There are many Muslims who have this beautiful connection to Guru Nanak. So in the essence of it, practically speaking, whoever has a reverence for Gurbani is welcome to come and chant and sing. In the practicality of how different Gurdwaras run, they may have certain requirements about who can actually lead the singing in that particular Gurdwara.
I have another really good question. This is from Vishal, and she says, Ong Kaar, do you think in the absence of a live guru, the Sangat could have multiple interpretations of the Guru Granth Sahib, in spite of the fact that a Sangat probably strengthens the community and their efforts even more?
Well, I think that it is inevitable to have multiple interpretations of the Guru Granth Sahib, because you can only understand the Guru from where you are today. So for me, I've been studying Gurbani for 20 something years now. I can't believe it's been that long and I'm that old, but yes, it's true. And I'll go back to things and understand them in a different light today than I did 10 years ago. And so, and people 100 years from now may understand Gurbani in a really different way, in ways we can't even imagine. So the Guru's wisdom is what it is. All I can do is reflect from where I am. And the Sangha can only reflect from where we are, which is why it's so important that we keep the vichar going, we keep the dialogue going, and never get fixated on any one, okay, this is it, and I'm going to hold on, and this has to be it, because our consciousness is evolving, and as a community, hopefully it's evolving. So it's important to have the flexibility of multiple interpretations, but also the kindness to keep in dialogue about it, and to just allow our understanding to evolve of what the Guru means.
That was beautiful. And someone else is asking, is there any music we can find, any kirtan like you just sang? Where can I find it? And on top of that, go ahead.
If you go to SeekNet, we have a Gurbani Media Center, and there's one style of music called Western Kirtan, which is kind of like picking up the guitar or using piano or more Western instruments and Western style of melodies. So there's lots of great Western Kirtan there, and you can find it on SeekNet in the Gurbani Media Center.
On top of that, I would like to add, with Kirtan, anybody can sing Kirtan. There's tons of videos on YouTube. There's a SeekNet. I don't know if the audio app is still there, but I remember I used to listen to a lot of Kirtan on that. But Kirtan and everything in Gurbani is written in a language that the common person can understand, which is what made it really unique. So if anybody at home maybe speaks Punjabi or understands Hindi, and these are common Indian languages, understanding Gurbani and being able to pronounce it and sing it is really, really simple. It's not that complicated. So you can find Kirtan anywhere. You just got to put in the word and you'll find something. And someone is asking how I spell Amrit Vela. I'll just send a private message about that. Okay, so far, I think that's all the questions. It's 8:30.
Okay, well, we can do a few more minutes of maybe just a little more bit of chanting if people want, unless people want to keep.
I was going to ask if there would be some music and then maybe a prayer to close. So I'm not sure what the ritual is. So, but I personally would love to hear you sing again.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think, Nishka? What do you want to do?
Perfect.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sing one verse from Japji Sahib in the original Gurmukhi. But I'm going to read you the English translation first, because it has one of my favorite lines in Guru Nanak. Of course, I have so many favorite lines, so I should never say my favorite line, but it has the line about, let our common brotherhood and sisterhood be our highest bond. So I'm going to read you the English translation, and then I'll sing the verse a few times. May you wear the earrings of deep contentment. May humility be your begging bowl and the shawl in which you carry your belongings. May being centered in the center of your being be the ashes that cleanse you. Wear the patched coat of death. Keep your body pure like a virgin. And may the staff that holds you upright as you walk along your journey be the constant remembrance of spirit within you. Let the highest and best company be the brotherhood and sisterhood of all peoples. Conquer your mind to conquer the world. I bow to the very act of bowing to thee, O Divine One, beyond time, beyond color, beyond sound, beyond form and containment. Age after age, you are the one. Munda Sanchok Sarampata Choli Tian Ki Kare Bubut Kinta Ka Kwari Kaya Jagita Danda Bharati Ai Panti Sagala Jamati Manjita Jagajit Ades to say Ades Ad Anil Anad Naha Juga Juga Ekove Ades to say Ades Ad Anil Anad Naha Juga Juga Ekove Munda Santok Sarampata Choli Tian Ki Kare Bebut Kintha Ka Kwari Kaya Jagita Danda Bharati Ai Panti Sagala Jamati Manjita Jagajit Ades to say Ades Ad Anil Anad Naha Juga Juga Ekove Ades to say Ades Ad Anil Anad
Not really sure what to say after that. So thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for this, for being here, for just sharing, just your presence alone. It just means so much. And every time I know both my mom and I hear you speak, and we get emotional, there's just so much love. So thank you. This is actually also everything that Ong Kaar just saying, if I'm not wrong, is part of Japji Sahib, which is our morning prayer. So I highly suggest you go look up Ong Kaar's translation on it. The whole entire thing is just beautiful. And, you know, if you feel like you can't read a book, she also has her series on the SickNet YouTube channel.
Well, thank you all. I really enjoyed being with you tonight, and I appreciate the invitation to come share with you. So thanks, Nishka.
I'd like to thank all of you for being here, and especially Jean Marie for letting us organize all of this. I mean, none of this would be possible without her and the rest of the Parsippany Library. So thank you everyone for being here. If anybody else has anything to say. And thank you all for the lovely comments as well. So glad you enjoyed.
Very much so. It was a wonderful program and I learned so much. And this will be, both sessions will be on the Parsippany Library YouTube channel. So you can go and review them again if there's some, you know, maybe you want to listen to some more singing. Nishka and her mother have donated some wonderful books to the library, and Jazz did also. So you can please feel free to come and take the books out and learn even more.
For those of you who are in Parsippany or in the nearby area, we also have a setup downstairs that Jacinda uncle, who's on this call, helped us set up along with his family. So thank you. It's by the kids section. So if you go downstairs, you'll be able to find it. There's several posters and artifacts about Sikhism. So if you want to learn more, just to get yourselves aware, that would be a great idea. We worked hard on it. So if you want to check it out.
That's right. Come on out. You have a career in communications. Excellent interview. That was one of the things in the chat. You have a career. So I guess you know where you're going to be an interviewer, I guess. I don't know.
Who knows?
Enjoyed the beautiful music as well. Thank you very much. Great job, Nishka. So,
Hello, everyone.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much. I'm so glad that everyone was able to come, and so glad that you all enjoyed it. I just appreciate that Nishka and her mom came to me and said, can you do this? Because this has been a complete pleasure being part of all of this. So thank you both very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right, then. We will see everyone later, I guess. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.